Anime Midwest 2013 was the first convention I ever reviewed. I gave it a low 6.5. Did Anime Midwest step it up in 2014, or did it still suffer from the problems that plagued it last year? This year, Anime Midwest was held for the second time in the Hyatt Regency O'Hare in Rosemont, Illinois, about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. But for the first time, they also used the Stevens Convention Center for their dealer's room, registration, and a few panel rooms. This was a huge improvement right off the bat. Splitting it up like this made it feel less crowded this year, even though it was a bigger turnout. Putting the dealer's room and artist alley in the convention center was a huge step up. Not only was it a much bigger area, they also had a lot better vendors this year. Of course, it wasn't as big as ASIN's, but it doesn't need to be. There were only 2 rooms in the convention center that were used for panels, but one of them was the main events room. Putting it in there changed so much about this convention. Last year, their main events room was used for main events panels and concerts. This year, all the concerts were in their own separate room in the Hyatt. By doing this, they had almost non-stop concerts going all weekend. Very good idea. Having registration in the convention center also made things run much more smoothly. On top of everything else, there was a food court in the convention center, which can only make things even better. The guest list they had this year, like last year, was really good. There was someone there for most everyone, which is impressive for a convention that's competing with Anime Expo on the same weekend. All the panels went very well for the most part this year. Last year, voice actors were stuffed into small rooms. This was not the case this year. On a side note, I love that they have an all voice actors panel on Sunday. Really cool. The only real problem with panels is that a few started late, which isn't that big of a deal, but those panels were opening ceremonies and the masquerade. Both not only started late, but they wouldn't even let people into the room until about a half hour after the panel was supposed to start. I'm not sure why this happened, but the people around us were getting very angry. I don't know why they couldn't at least let people in to sit down until they got everything set up. Speaking of opening ceremonies, it was much better than last year. Last year's was very drawn out and boring. This year, they hit each guest pretty fast and got us back out to enjoy the con. Other than these 2 panels being late, I felt that everything was organized much better than ever before. Last year, the staff were all running around trying to figure things out. This year, they seemed very in control and seemed to have everything together. Let's talk about the raves for a second. Anime Midwest has 2 raves, Friday and Saturday night. They still put on some of the best anime convention raves I have ever been to. Not only are the DJs excellent, they use the lighting setup that they use for all the concerts, which is just a magnificent setup. The lighting alone really helps everyone get into it. Okay, I've only got a few more things that I want to mention that don't really fit into any of the other topics. Last year, elevators broke because people jumped on them. This year, they had a sign saying, "Do not jump on the elevators." From what I saw, elevators were not a problem this year. At least, not as bad as they were last year. Autographs were done much better. Last year, there was a problem with guests charging for them and not telling people until after they waited all day in line. This year, Anime Midwest just made it a rule that they were free. Period. People were telling me they had a setup in the dealer's room where you could get free professional pictures taken and they would post them online for you, or you could get prints of them. This is pretty cool. Once again, they had sleeping samurai there, so if you wanted to fight your friends with foam swords, you can. Lastly, they had a maid cafe that, sadly, I did not get to go to, but everyone I talked to about it said it went really well and they really enjoyed it. Location gets a 10 out of 10. This is a very nice hotel and convention center. Rosemont is a beautiful place to hold this convention. As of now, this location holds this con very well. Dealer's room gets a 9.5 out of 10. Big step up from last year. The room was large and they had a little something for everyone, but it was still missing a couple things. All in all, huge improvement though. Organization gets an 8.5 out of 10. Everything was very organized and ran really well, but I have to take a couple of points off for some of the big panels that were put on by the con running pretty late. Panels get a 10 out of 10. Once they all got started, the panels were very good. I didn't see one that bored me. I'm also including all the concerts in here as well, which all seem to go off without a hitch. The rave gets a 10 out of 10. This rave was amazing. That's the best word for it. If you go to any AnimeCon rave, make it this one. The staff gets a 10 out of 10. Every staff member I ran into over the weekend was very nice and very helpful. You could tell they were really trying to make this con the best it could be. One of the best staffs I've seen in a while. At the end of the day, this was a huge improvement. They took everything they did wrong last year and fixed it. I had a very fun weekend, and everyone I talked to about it also had a great time. Talk about stepping it up. Good job, Anime Midwest. Asen, you may have some competition. I give Anime Midwest 2014 a well-deserved 9.5 out of